You ask how I got these scars. It was many years ago when it happened, early August of my 15th year. The experience is one I would rather not relive, but I will tell you what happened. I was asleep when it started. I had never felt the tremors before, but my father had, years ago. Yesterday, when we felt them, he assured us it would be alright. Now, it was different. Even my father looked scared as we watched the ash fall from the sky. It was slowly building up in the streets, and people were starting to run out of their villas. My father grabbed my mother and gathered some extra togas to wrap around our heads. My father looked at me with urgency. We wrapped ourselves completely with the togas and left our villa. It was much hotter outside than normal, and ash was burning people's skin as it fell. My parents started running in the direction of the port. The crowd was growing, and suddenly I tripped over a dog. I tumbled in the ash-covered street, and it painfully burned my face. I scrambled to wipe it all off while people were running past. I tried to stand up, but someone stepped on my back. Ouch! I was about to give up and curl up into a ball when someone picked me up. It was my friend Grumio. He put me on his back and we ran into a side street. We stopped when we got to the Temple of Apollo. Grumio, why are we in the temple? We need to go to the Portus. Grumio turned around and said, all we need to do is pray to Apollo. He proceeded to kneel down at the Lararium and pray. I was really worried because the ash was building up outside and I didn't know where my parents were. The ceiling of the temple was not very sturdy, and I could see that it was about to collapse. Grumio! I yelled at him and tried to pull him away from the shrine, but he refused to budge. I sprinted out of the temple, right before the ceiling and all of the rocks fell onto Grum. It was heart-crushing to know that he was gone, but I did not have time to stop and cry about it. Fires were starting around me and chaos was increasing. I ran back to the main street, hopping over broken pieces of people's houses. I hoped my parents had made it to the port, but as I ran, I kept an eye out for them on the road. From behind me, I heard a loud scream. I glanced back and saw an incredibly large black cloud rolling down the mountain. It was slow moving, but it was suffocating those people who could not get out in time. This was life or death. I sprinted away from the cloud and focused on getting to the port. Some people around me were turning to save others who had fallen. Some had given up and were just sitting on the side of the road. When I reached the end of the road, I found a small path that led down to the port. There was so much ash in the air I couldn't see well, but I saw what looked like a large amount of people boarding ships to leave. I had to slow down so I didn't trip on the rocky path. I was so scared. I felt as if the black cloud was already upon me. Somehow, I don't know how, I made it to the port. I lost my extra toga wrapping along the way, and the ash was once again burning my face as it fell. Many ships were leaving and I rushed to get on one randomly. I hid in the corner as I waited for the ship to leave. I looked around for my parents, but they weren't there with me. I curled up and started sobbing for the loss of my city and my friends. I prayed to Juno to save my parents, but I knew most of my friends were likely gone. When the ship reached the island, I looked around at the crowd. So many Pompeians had escaped, but I knew many more had been left behind. Pater! Mater! I ran around looking for my parents. I finally saw them at the back of the crowd. My father was crying and my mother was on the ground. Oh no. I rushed over and they both looked up in surprise. You're alive! We all shouted at the same time. I hugged them both tightly. We were all fine, except for these burn marks which stayed with us forever. And those are my scars that you ask about.